Hi everyone, this YouTube video provides a summary of my Masters research project in Design Anthropology. This project was done on behalf of the Indigenous Advisory Committee of the Yarra Ranges Council. The project Respectful Evaluation is looking at co-designing respectful systems of feedback in Aboriginal health and community development services. Through the application of what my Professor Dory Tunstall calls cultures-based innovation, this project aims to combine the concepts of Indigenous knowledge with the methods and theories of design anthropology. By exploring this Indigenous agenda for research, we hope to create a pathway that can lead to tangible outcomes for the community itself. The notion of respect, caring, and sharing are Indigenous knowledge concepts which have been stated by Norm Sheen as well as Auntie Dot Peters. This project takes this notion of respect, caring, and sharing and asks whether current evaluation processes are respectful, and how do we create new processes of evaluation. By engaging in this process, this project thus informs the Council's Reconciliation Action Plan. For this project, we conducted an ethics review, did a literature review, conducted 7 interviews and 2 observations. To get a broad understanding in people engaging with these types of health services, we interviewed community members from the Eastern region, workers in health promotion and community development, members from council and government, and also funding bodies. These participants were all part of different types of organisations, from service delivery to governmental organisations like DOH and DPCD. Our participants were some way involved in Indigenous health and community development. When interviewing such a broad base of participants, we had to make sure we were engaging with each member respectfully. Through the dialogue with the Council's IAC, they have helped me shape and refine my research processes. The following slides are some of the key insights that have emerged through the process of this research. Surveys as barriers. While surveys are commonly used in evaluation processes, they can be often perceived as barriers from the Indigenous community. This is reiterated when a community development worker hands out a survey. She always starts off by saying, "Sorry, you have to fill this in." Because surveys are generally conducted in English, language can also become a barrier. There is also a negative association with filling out surveys. This is because community have been constantly filling out surveys and never seen any tangible outcomes from filling out these forms. Context is everything. When talking to community health and development workers, there's this saying that kept on popping up, trying to fit square pegs into round holes. Whilst there is general consensus that programs and evaluation should be based on the local context of the community, there appears to be an inconsistency with how these programs are evaluated. This is because the basis of evaluation are still based on Western models. What would the evaluation process look like if it was based on current context of the Yarra Ranges? Priorities. Community engagement takes up a lot of time and resources. Indigenous community members have strong ties with their family, and extended family, and their community. They are also part of many different organisations. Because of the complex lives community members have, you'll often find that sometimes members might come and drop off from community engagement, and this is all part of the process. In terms of evaluation, how do we accommodate for these real-life experiences that are normal with community engagement? Conflicting values and agendas. When speaking to community, they felt that some members have their own agendas and have superiority complex. Based on one individual, it can become very hard to forward the community's agenda. Sometimes these positions of power can come from community too. Participants felt that decisions were made based on prejudiced perceptions and ego. Satellite innovation. There are new innovative methods constantly being explored by different community health workers in different groups. They were constantly developing new tools and methods of the evaluation process. After observing and talking to participants, the evaluation processes can be broken down to 2 stages. Number 1, data collection. Number 2, communication, and representation. For data collection, we saw new methods like strength cards, post-it wall notes, and spatial mapping being used. For different ways of representation, we see music and videos constantly being used by community members. It feels like these alternative approaches are constantly happening throughout the community. As one community health worker explained, it will be interesting to see what other people from different communities are doing. That way they can all learn from each other. Community sustainability. Sustainable community engagement starts and is driven from the community within. Workers in health promotion and community development have seen time and time again when a program is rolled out and it appears to have a sort of structural or professional feeling about it, the community doesn't want to get involved. If the community takes ownership of these programs, the word will spread throughout the community, thus increasing the exposure and possibility of greater participation. How do we provide greater opportunities of access for communities to participate? Low standards of evaluation. When I asked the funding body about the current processes of evaluation in community development, they described to me that current processes are pretty much stock standard. Whilst government sets the agenda for requirements and the style of reporting, they do not set the methods and processes of evaluation. Internal and external notions of evaluation. There seems to be a divide between what is formally required as a notion of evaluation and what are the informal processes that happen. From speaking to many participants, it seemed very clear that informal processes were just as important as formal processes. By one community explaining, sitting down and talking is a way to cut through barriers of engagement and could be an interesting opportunity to connect communities with members from government and council. Time. Government departments view a long-term project as within a 4-year period, whereas community view time as the past, present, and future. A 4-year project in the community term is viewed as a short-term project. By understanding the differences of time, how do we plan for more holistic programs that align with the long-term goals of the community? Can projects be tailored and designed in a way that reflects the community's long-term strategy? Power. A change in institution equals a change in policy, programming, reporting, and the outcomes that needed to be measured. This diagram shows what happens when we have a change in person in power. So from a Labour government, which is represented in red, to Liberal government, what is represented in blue. So these parties have different ideologies, and in turn they have different agendas with policy. For a Liberal, they might look at jobs, and for Labour, they might more focus on social capital. These affect how things are evaluated. With the change of government being part of the cycle of politics, how can community and planning developers harness this understanding to create more opportunities for community to achieve their long-term goals? Transparency and accountability. This system map shows how evaluation and funding works. So on the top left-hand corner, we start off with a community health worker and a community member engaging into a process of evaluation. This then gets turned into a report and then gets passed up to council, to funding bodies, and so forth. If the program is successful, that means funding will get filtered down back to the community. In terms of the curation of a report, this can be then viewed by members of the community. But the report is one of the main problems with it. For community members, it is like trying to read and understand a different language altogether. If community is deterred from engaging with a 100-page report, how is this process transparent, and how are they supposed to make people accountable? Being a design project, the next stage of the process was to develop ideas and concepts based on the emergent research results. There are 3 ideas presented on this page. To address the notion of lack of information management, we propose a communication posters that will be designed for community members, community health workers and funding bodies. This is aimed at addressing the different types of languages and also informing community what has happened with the results of the projects. The next concept was a community development planning game. So the whole idea of this was to get community members, workers and people from funding together in a room to be able to play a game which was based on trying to develop a program and trying to gain funding as well as community members. By playing the game together, we can see that the many tensions can arise by either getting funding for a program as well as maintaining a good level of community engagement. And by moving their pieces around the puzzles, then they might pick up cards which say, okay, you've lost this amount of funding, or a community development worker has dropped out because they have family issues. These are all instances that can happen in real life, but having them played in a game in such a short amount of time creates this awareness amongst all the relevant participants. By playing the game, participants can gain a good understanding of all the complexities when trying to set up and implement a community development program. The last idea is at the bottom of the page is coming up with a set of evaluation cards. These method cards could be used as a planning tool for people, community workers, people in community and government. So they can come together and think about what are the processes that need to happen within community itself, and does a report need to be made, and how do we represent information back to the community. So, by having the balance between community and government, we can have a respectful process that informs both all the stakeholders, I guess. When I initially presented these concepts to members of the IAC, they sort of viewed these individual concepts as all working together in a system to provide a process of evaluation that sort of redefines evaluation itself. Following that, I've derived a sketch of some principles of a respectful evaluation process. That said, I feel that for this process to truly be validated, it must be taken through a project, a project that is co-designed with the community itself. And if this were to truly happen, we can thus transcend an evaluation. So, currently projects evaluation is sort of looked at a linear model where a worker will think about evaluation and then conduct it at specific points of time. In the future, we envision that community, job funding and health workers all come together and collectively discuss, dialogue and plan for their community development projects. Guided by respect, caring and sharing, community members transform from being passive observers to active participants. The goal of this is to create an evaluation process that strengthens and builds community. Through this process, we highlight that community core values of respect can be carried out through a design process to carry out tangible outcomes for community.